welcome everybody to the Professional Staff Conference 2021. If you've already been joining in, or if this is your first session, we welcome you, and it's great to see so many people, as Thomas said. Today's session is facilitating the development of intercultural competencies through story exchanges, and it will be run as a workshop. My name is Melissa, and I'm one of the moderators of this session. I'm working with Lucy, who's also a moderator today, to facilitate the session. Before we start, the University of Melbourne acknowledges the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander traditional owners of the unceded land on which we work and learn. We pay respects to the elders past and present, and the place of Indigenous knowledge in the Academy. I'm on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation today. And a few housekeeping issues, just as Thomas mentioned. Please stay on mute during the presentation, but you're more than welcome to turn your camera on so we can see everybody. And please feel free to put questions and comments in the chat, and we will be monitoring those. And so everyone will get a chance to ask a question. And now I'll introduce the presenters of our session. It's our honour today to welcome Ha Gwen, Hilary Dolan and Thomas Peretti. Ha and Hilary are from our Academic Skills Unit in Student and Scholarly Services. And Thomas comes to us from the student-run organisation, the Culture Bridge Institute. Now over to our presenters for what is sure to be a wonderful session. Thank you.
So I'm just gonna share my screen and get the slides up. So here we go. I hope everyone, as I was saying, is having a beautiful day. I welcome Annie and everyone else that might have been joining us while Melissa was introducing the session. If I can please ask everyone to introduce themselves in the chat and to share on a scale from 1 to 5 how many interactions with people from different cultural backgrounds you might have had during your academic or professional experience, where 1 is very few and 5 is a great many, just so that we can evaluate the frequency that intercultural interactions occur at our university. While you're doing that, my colleagues will be monitoring the chat and telling me what is the average and how often we have these type of interactions. So as I can see, there's a lot of 5s and 4s. This is amazing and exemplifies how our university has such a vibrant and multicultural environment in which we interact on a daily basis with people from diverse cultural backgrounds. So facilitating the development of intercultural competencies through story circles was an idea that we had while we were working on an academic research during the last year. While we were researching the literature, we encountered the review for the UNESCO written by Diedoff, in which she explains the story circles methodology. I've already been introduced by Melissa, so I'm gonna leave the word to Ha and Hilary if they want to quickly add anything to their introduction.
Sure, I can go. Hello, everyone. My name is Ha. I'm from Academic Skills, Scholarly Development. So this initiative came from our research and resource development project, which is partly funded by the Association for Academic Language and Learning, which is based in Australia. And the project is called Cultivating Intercultural Competencies in Digital Higher Education Through English as an International English. So we've been working on it, Culture Bridge and Academic Skills, and yeah, really enjoying the project. Hilary, would you like to say a few words?
Thanks, Ha. And I'm also part of Academic Skills. And a common theme that we've observed through doing this work is that it's very much in line with academic well-being and belonging. And I know that's something that everybody here cares about. So we're very keen today to get your input as well. So that's part of the session too. So it's a mutual sharing of knowledge. Yeah, let's go on to the session overview. So basically, there are kind of 4 main components to it. So first of all, we'll have a think about, what might be the value. What's the value of actually doing this, of developing our intercultural competences? What our story circles will take you through a methodology. So we hope by the end of it, you'll feel confident to have a go at perhaps doing this or participating in it another time. We'll talk about why it's important in education and what are the main benefits of it. And I'm sure you'll have lots of questions, so please ask us lots of questions about that as we're going through it. And of course, we're going to practice it as well. So you're going to have a go at being part of a story exchange. So we'll talk about how it can be facilitated.
So what is the value of intercultural competencies? So as we've seen from the chat, all of us had a lot of interactions with people from different cultural backgrounds. And when we're interacting with someone from a different cultural background, we need to be critical and aware and attempt to develop attitudes, knowledge, and skills which can help us to communicate across different cultures. So it's not enough to just engage with someone from a different culture in order to develop intercultural competencies, but we need to actively think about them in order to develop these skills which can improve human interactions across diversity. And especially since we are in such a highly multicultural environment in which 41% of our students are international students from over 155 different nationalities, it's really important to keep these skills in mind and to be critical and aware when developing them. Now we're going to show a quick video developed by the UNESCO regarding how to develop ICC through story circles. And I'll just share my screen and play the video for all of us.
That is increasing. In a world that is increasingly connected, we meet and interact in our daily life with different cultures. Think about a person who does a great job connecting with different people. Maybe this is a neighbour, a family member, a colleague, a famous person. What is it about that person that helps them connect so well with persons of different ages, genders, and religions?
Chances are they have certain skills and attitudes that help them do so, such as open-mindedness, listening, empathy. They have intercultural competencies that make them better understand others, be more inclusive, and become change makers against stereotyping, hate speeches, racism, and discrimination. UNESCO developed story circles, an accessible methodology, structured yet adaptable, that helps participants practice key aspects of intercultural competencies.
We have always told stories as a way to connect. Circles, or talking circles, have a long tradition in many cultures as a way to engage with one another. Story circles help participants to connect deeply and meaningfully across differences, whether within a society or across borders, helping us find common humanity. They have been used all over the world in countless settings, such as in healthcare, with youth, in classrooms, in local communities, with refugees, and with indigenous populations.
It takes 4 to 6 people to hold a story circle. Participating is simple. Just be yourself and share from your own experience. You'll find out that every person has a story to share and that we all have something to learn from others. This is what brings us together.
Ready to practice key skills in connecting with others? Want to help bridge divides? Join a story circle and experience our shared humanity in building a better world together.
So after having seen this video, I'm gonna put the slides back up. Here we go. So, what are story circles? Story circles is a methodology developed by Dierdorf, which enables us to share and reflect on a personal experience in a small group setting. The fact that we find ourselves in a small group setting makes it easier for us to share personal life stories, which we might not feel comfortable sharing in a big group setting. Furthermore, during the activities, we're going to ask you to share some personal experiences. If you're not comfortable or willing to participate, please inform your group members, and I'm sure that we will all be fine with that. So yeah, as I was saying, in story circles, we share life experiences and become active producers of knowledge. So why should story circles be used in education? Well, story circles help us to recognize differences and similarities with others. They enable us to connect on a cognitive, social-emotional, and behavioral level. And they empower us to own and enrich our own experience by becoming active producers of knowledge. Furthermore, this methodology can be enforced by staff and students who are skilled and have experience in working with people from diverse backgrounds and are able to implement the story circle model. So what we hope to achieve is that every one of you, by the end of this conference, through the material that we will provide you with, will be able to implement this model if they're willing to do so. So these are the 7 story circle goals, or commandments, as I like to call them. It's really important to demonstrate respect for others while sharing our personal stories. And we need to practice active listening for understanding. So we need to avoid interrupting others when talking, even though their time might have expired. We need to cultivate curiosity about similarities and differences, which will enable us to gain an increased level of self-awareness and to develop empathy. Then we need to engage in critical reflection on one's own cultural competencies, as well as the intercultural experience. Because as I was saying earlier, it's not enough to interact with someone from a different cultural background to develop intercultural competencies, but we need to actively and critically think about the skills that we are developing when doing so. And this will enable us to develop relationship with culturally different others. So if I can please ask everyone to keep these commandments in mind while we will be engaging in our activities, and to avoid being distracted or to interrupt others while in the breakout rooms. I know that a lot of you will share some interesting recipes or life stories to which you will want to have more information straight away, but please just wait. And at the end, I'm sure that we will all be able to share our nonna's recipes with each other. So this is a quick overview of the structure that we are enforcing today and sharing with you. When running a story circle session, there's going to be a briefing part in which with the whole student cohort, you can run them through the main definition and the structure of the session, as we're doing with you now. Then afterwards, there's going to be the first activity, which we have called the Get Acquainted round, which will run for 10 minutes, during which everyone will have 1 or 2 minutes to answer the question that we're going to display in a second. Afterwards, there's going to be a flashback round in which everyone will have 15 seconds to remember the most important points of the stories that they have heard. And then we're going to go on the next story. Afterwards, there's going to be the intercultural competencies round, which will run for 20 minutes. Everyone will have 3 or 4 minutes to answer the second prompt, which we'll show in a second. Then there's going to be the flashback round about the intercultural competencies round, which works the same as the flashback round I have explained earlier. And afterwards, there's going to be a debriefing in which we will all together analyze the similarities and differences and the skills that we have developed in the breakout rooms. So if I can please ask once in the breakout rooms to decide a member of the group to be the timekeeper. And if I can please ask whoever's going to be the timekeeper just to signal without interrupting that the time has expired if it happens, and to rotate the role of the timekeeper. So if there's someone that's the timekeeper in the first activity, if someone else can be the timekeeper in the second activity, it would be wonderful. We as presenters will not interrupt or enter the breakout rooms, as we want to make everyone feel comfortable enough to share personal life stories, and we want this to happen organically. Please keep in mind that during the breakout rooms, we need to actively think about the development of these skills. And if you have any questions while you are in the breakout rooms, please pop them in the chat and we will answer them straight away. We will also send a broadcast message with the second question after 10 minutes, so to facilitate keeping track of time. So the first prompt is, what is a favorite food that you would eat growing up? And how does that relate to your background? Now we're gonna run a quick example. I'm going to answer this prompt myself, and Hillary or Ham will run a quick flashback session just to give you an idea of what's gonna happen in the breakout rooms. So my favorite food that I ate as a child was lasagna, and specifically my grandma's lasagna. As you can see, I've added a picture in it because I've cooked it the other night and it just looked divine. We would usually eat this dish during, Christmas, Easter, or birthdays. And it was a moment during which all of my family would come together and we would bond and really live the Italian connection to food, which is not just eating, but it's also sharing, personal experiences and just checking up on how everyone was doing. And I remember feeling really at home and at ease with everyone surrounding me, and loving the fact that while I was eating this lasagna, everyone was happy to share whatever was happening in their life, because the taste of it would just bring us back to our inner children. So I'm not sure if either Hillary or either one, whoever's willing to do the flashback.
I can give it a go. Oh, hi, if you want
go
to.
Hillary, go Hillary. We'll both do it.
Yeah, we probably have different insights, I think. Well, thank you for sharing your story, Thomas. For me, the most memorable part was just the sense of community and connection that you had with your family over lasagna. And I could see that you felt very happy when you were talking about it.
Oh, it's my turn.
That's
yep.
My flashback. Yep.
My flashback is that, I learned something new about lasagna, that you eat it on special occasions like birthdays, like Christmas, and celebrations with friends and families. And it's about the connection. It's about feeling connected to other people.
Thank you so much for that. And yeah, it's definitely about feeling connected. To be honest, sometimes I thought that my grandma was trying to kill us, because she would cook 10 trays of lasagna for 5 people. And that could be quite intense because I cannot stop eating lasagna. So I would go through the whole trays. Now I'm going to introduce the second activity. The question is, what is one of the most positive interactions you have had with a person or persons who is different from you, and what made it such a positive experience? So after answering the first prompt for 10 minutes, we're gonna just remind you of this question and pop it in the chat, also to give you a sense of time, and you can answer this question. So please keep in mind to allocate one timekeeper for the first activity and a different one for the second activity. Please keep in mind the 7 commandments and try and be aware of the skills that you're trying to develop in the breakout rooms. If now there are any questions about the activities or questions that you have popped in the chat, we're more than happy to answer them before dividing you into the breakout rooms.
I can't see any questions yet. Probably the one thing I might be picking up on is people are a little bit nervous about the timing. So don't worry about that, because what we'll do is we'll broadcast the different prompts as you're going through, but I'll repost the slide, the details rather, about the timing again there, because I can see that somebody wanted it. Yeah. So if you just remember the first one for now, and you're more than welcome to copy and paste the prompts from the chat as well. I'll repost them again. I guess we can start organizing the breakout rooms. Yeah.
Just give me a sec, I'll do that now. So you'll be put into breakout rooms of 4 participants each.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, we're going to come back for the debriefing session, which we will run all together.
Yeah, and it's not about having the perfect story. This is something you don't have to be, it's not storytelling as such. It's just, this instinctually, because it's your experience. It doesn't have to be perfect or, polished or anything like that at all. It's just about learning, listening to others and learning about their experience, just as we did a second ago with Thomas.
So before we go into breakout rooms, just the time, you have 10 minutes for the first round and 20 minutes for the second round, and flashbacks as well. And altogether, how much time people will be spending in breakout rooms, Hilary?
Roughly 40 minutes, yes.
40 minutes, okay.
Yeah.
I'll open all breakout rooms
Yeah.
now. Enjoy that, everyone. We'll be broadcasting instructions throughout or reminders.
Welcome back, everyone. It's lovely to see you've still got your cameras on. You look happy, that's good. Great. So hopefully you've met somebody new and that you've broadened your perspective on what life is like for somebody else. That's the beauty of story circles. And we showed you a lot of communication skills before, about the goals of story circles, but we don't expect you to develop all of them, of course, in 40 minutes. It's really a lifelong journey, isn't it? Yes, so we're moving on to the next part, and that's the debriefing part. So this is really essential. It's essential to have this part in the story circle. And please share your thoughts as well. We're going to share Padlet with you in a minute as well, where we can kind of debrief on a larger scale, but please post in the chat as well. But this part is really important if you're running a session, to include and to allow time to, dig a bit deeper rather than just, the stories. Just thinking about what you actually learned from being in the presence of others. And yes, so I wouldn't leave this part out. And there's different ways of doing it. Today, you could continue on in your small breakout room and do the debriefing, but because it's a large group, we're going to do it in this way. And facilitators then, they're pulling out, the key learnings from the participants in this setting. And of course, as I've already said it to you, that there's some expectation setting. So you want to let participants know that it's not just, you're not done after participating in one story circle. We're all learning together. That's the main message of story circles. Do you want to extend on it, Ha?
Yeah, that's a great point. The last one here, I think facilitators should end a story circle session on the note that this is an ongoing lifelong learning process, because the manual by UNESCO does say that there's no end point to intercultural learning, and we just keep going up and up and up, hopefully in circles or in a spiral. So that's a great point to expand on, Hilary. Go to the next slide, if you could, Thomas. Thank you. So these are the main questions that UNESCO recommends for the debriefing part of a story circle session. And we are allowing a lot of time for you to engage in this activity. And in a moment, I'll put in the chat the Padlet that outlines all these questions for you to address. Probably you can pick a few, but these are the main ones. What are the common themes that you heard from the stories that you experienced in your story circle? What did you learn about yourself through this experience? Because a key competence in intercultural competencies is self-awareness, and how you sort of think slightly differently about yourself, or how you enrich your self-awareness through that process. Question number 3 is about what you want to explore further after hearing these stories. So now what? So what? That's that aspect of competencies that we are trying to sort of feed forward in our future work. And in a similar vein, how has this experience helped you practice listening for understanding and developing empathy? So maybe just more thinking about, what was it that triggered your understanding? What was it about that listening process that was deeply enriching for you, and equally for developing empathy as well? The 5th question, stepping back from the experience itself, what are one or two insights you've gained that will help you to relate better to those who are different from you? So sort of some specific plan for what you would do in the future, a few insights. And the next question is about action. So if you have any actions that you want to do as a result of this, please let us know. But you don't have to answer all of these questions, right? Just pick maybe a few. You can answer all of them if you're ready, but it's not the expectation from just a 30-minute debriefing segment. So I'm just putting that in the chat for everyone. All these questions have been put on that Padlet. I would love for everyone to go there. Just one thing before you participate though. We are in the process of developing some resources for staff and students across the university on developing intercultural competencies. So I guess we are asking for your consent to give us the right to use any input that you put on the Padlet as part of that development of resources. And if you're okay with that, please go ahead and populate the Padlet with your thoughts. Otherwise, you can just stay within the chat because the chat is not shared in the resources development. So thank you, everyone.
So I'm just sharing here the Padlet screen so we can see in real life, more or less, what everyone is sharing and adding to the Padlet. And we're going to give you a couple of minutes to do this. In the meantime, if anyone is willing to share some skills or similarities or differences, very broadly, because as we said in the introduction, we would like what you shared in the breakout rooms to remain confidential. But if you want to share some main themes in the chat, please unmute yourself and jump on and just talk to us and tell us what you've learned.
And with the Padlet, if you haven't used Padlet before, that's okay. You just have to see the plus symbol, and that'll open up like a text box for you to post your thinking.
And I've just noticed that Carrie, Lucy, and Aaron said that they started feeling that they wanted lasagna after seeing the picture of the lasagna, and I'm more than happy to share my grandma's recipe with you. So if you're interested, I can send you an email with the recipe, and I'm sure that you'll be able to recreate it at home. I've personally started feeling like German sausages because Lucy shared with us her experience and her history, and I've been really missing eating some nice sausage in the cold weather of Germany while in Berlin.
They're pretty good, especially at the Christmas markets. Just delicious.
With a nice big pint of beer, I guess, when we will be able to drink from a glass and eat from a plate again, sitting or walking around in a pub, hopefully soon.
Hopefully.
Wow, so many answers.
I should say something about I'm just explaining about the donuts background. I guess, it evokes different images and different memories in different people. For me, donuts are sugary, they are sweet, they resemble the story circle because they are circles. So imagine yourself sitting around a donut. I know that's crazy, but that's my imagination. That's the extent of it. And that reminds me of the donut van at Queen Victoria Market, which is so far away from us now. And, remember double donut days we used to have? Yeah. For Thomas, it's a different image, right?
We were talking about it while you were in breakout rooms, how it reminds me of The Simpsons, and we were noticing how it's interesting that everyone's personal experience generates different memories based off the same image. And I'm just going to read some answers to the question. So what common themes did you hear from the stories, family, and the importance of relationships within food sharing? It's not just food, and we were just talking about that with a seal while you were all in the breakout rooms. The need for connection and shared experiences, that is so true. It is important to support others to make them feel included and welcome, and everyone's actions go a long way. Wow, these are amazing. Thank you so much. Some more answers under the prompt: what did you learn about yourself through this experience? How difficult it is to pinpoint one story and how emotional some of these moments can feel. Connecting brings me joy as well as anxiety. And I think that this is a really important point, because the whole point of story circles is to create smaller groups within which people feel more comfortable in showing aspects of themselves that they might not be willing to share in a big group scenario. And I've experienced that myself coming from Italy. You know, when you find yourself in a tutorial and they ask you to introduce yourself and you're a bit shy and unsure, and maybe if I would have been asked to do that in a group of 3 people, I would have felt less anxious to do it. Felt very emotional and loved hearing the stories, learned that I should do things like these more often, that my attitudes of cultural curiosity aren't unusual. I shared stories with a wonderful group who were as culturally curious as I am. And that is another really good point, because at the end of the day, sometimes we forget that we're also culturally curious because maybe we feel anxious or insecure or we're not sure. And it's really empowering to remind us that we're all curious about diversity.
Mm. It's inclusive as well, isn't it? It's inclusive because I don't know if you picked up on it, but everybody had their turn to speak. And it kind of takes away, you know, the dominant kind of aspect of it. Everybody's kind of on the level and has an equal opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah, and I guess within the context of higher education, when we're working with a lot of students coming from different backgrounds, whether you are an academic or professional staff, I think this can bring a freshness to your program. And probably once before a program starts or regularly throughout a program to strengthen relationships. I think that's really important, as part of, you know, developing student skills and fostering that connection within a cohort as well. I think that's so key to any program. We've put together the Story Circles guide. I know there's the UNESCO manual, but it's 100 and something pages. And we've done the job of, you know, reading through the manual and summarizing that for you in 3 pages. So please go ahead and download that and use if you want to run something similar in your program or just for your own, you know, enrichment. And we've added our own tech on it as well as people working in higher education. So that's tailored to higher education.
Yeah, there's a certain flexibility with it too, because obviously it's not going to be a one size fits all. As you know, working with individuals, we're also different. So thinking about the group as well and contextualizing it a bit to them. So you might have different goals for the story circle. Yeah.
There's a question for me from Levi. This Padlet platform is free to UNIMEL people and staff, well, of course, staff, especially staff. I think I'm not sure if it is a learning environments webpage explaining how to get access as a staff member. I think you can Google that. Do you know where staff can get access to that, Hilary?
Yeah, I can have a look.
I guess through learning environments.
Yeah.
Well, Hilary is checking on that. I just wanted to highlight how someone said that this experience enabled them to connect with themes and emotions in people responses rather than just facts. And that's exactly what we were saying before, how the story circle methodology enabled us to develop deeper connections with the people around us, which then foster the development of these skills and attitudes which can improve the interaction with people from diverse cultural backgrounds.
There are a few comments in the chat as well. Asil loves that these are reflections and practices that can be practiced with distributed groups. Yeah, so anyone. And it's not super hard to facilitate such a session. I think anyone who is skilled in working with people from diverse backgrounds and knows enough about this methodology can apply it in their own context too. So it's really flexible. Thanks, Joanne, for sharing the link to learning environments in terms of using technologies like Padlets. Thank you.
I think Meredith, who leads up Padlet, I think at the university, has put a link in there. So thank you, Meredith,
Thanks,
as well. Yes.
Wonderful.
So please keep sharing on the Padlet. We will keep monitoring this and then use it for the development of further resources to facilitate these type of activities in the university. And now we'll just go back to the presentation so we can go through the last couple of slides. I was honestly forgetting about it because I was enjoying so much going through your answers, but there is a time which I think we need to keep in mind. So here are some references.
So we've drawn mainly on the Dierdorf manual, which is the UNESCO manual. And obviously there was a lot of practice and research and field work that went into that as well. So we distilled the main points for you and we've put them in the Story Circle guide, which I've uploaded onto the Padlet platform and also emailed to you previously as well. So feel free to use it. If you see any gaps, please get into contact with us and just let us know how we could improve that resource. Thank you. And the next slide is the slide about Culture Bridge.
Thanks for that, Ha. So this is a slide where we have a couple of general information regarding Culture Bridge. There's the link to our website, our LinkedIn link, and our email if you have any questions. And Culture Bridge is a student-led non-for-profit think tank where we try to develop resources facilitating the connection between people from different cultures, because we realized that our university was such a multicultural environment and we just wanted everyone to feel welcome and to have the resources necessary to develop their intercultural competencies. Also, everyone, please feel free to copy and paste these links or use them in the future to direct your students to us if you feel that is relevant to a session that you're doing, or if you feel that they might be interested in it. And we look forward to hearing from you. Yes, and academic skills. In case you didn't know about us, I hope you do, but in case you don't know, we're a free service that's here to support every single student in the university, to enable them to build their academic literacies and to thrive really at the university. And this is week 10, so we're coming into the time when students have lots of assessments due and all the rest. So we do have our individual consultations. We have the writing drop-in center. We have lots of online resources. We have some exam revision workshops coming up and writing your final assignment. So please bear that in mind over the next little while. And we're hoping to do more and more work in the intercultural space. So we already run some workshops with Culture Bridge, but we're hoping to do a lot more of that since we all know it's so important. So just summing up, as I said at the beginning of the conference, it's really important to keep in mind that intercultural competencies need to be fostered. And to do that, we need to be critical and aware about the knowledge, the attitudes, and the skills that we are fostering while engaging with someone from a different cultural background. This can be done through story circles, which is a methodology that empowers participants to develop a cognitive, social, emotional, and behavioral connection, as someone highlighted in the Padlet earlier. And if you ever decide to run a story circle session, please keep in mind the 7 story circle commandments, which I mentioned earlier, which are based on respect, active listening, curiosity, which stimulates the recognition of similarities and difference and enables us to be culturally self-aware and empathic with others and to critically reflect on our experience while building a relationship with someone with a different cultural background. And then the last point is just a quick summary of the structure that we have employed today and that you can employ when running your story circle session. So just quickly, There's a briefing part where you brief the entire group about the core ideals and values. Then there is the first activity, which is the get acquainted round, slightly shorter than the second one, which is the intercultural competencies round. After each activity, there are the flashbacks, which enable us all to engage with what has been said during the activity. And afterwards, we all come back to the main room and we have a nice debriefing session where we highlight the similarities and differences and the main attitudes and skills that we developed during these activities. I just wanted to point out that the debriefing part can also commence in the breakout rooms if there's time, but it doesn't have to. And that every story circle session is unique. So also the names of the activities are not set in stone. You can use other prompts from the summary that we have created, and you can get creative with it. So now if there are any questions about the recipes we've shared or the information we've provided, I think that we will be more than happy to answer.
Thanks, Thomas. I think I noticed in the chat somebody asked if it would be okay to share the Story Circles guide outside of the university, and the response from your team was yes, which is great. Thank you.
Thanks. So as I said from the beginning, this comes from an initiative funded by the Association for Academic Language and Learning, which is based in Australia. And the idea is that we share the resources coming out of this project widely across universities. So please help yourself. And we're hoping to find a formal channel to sort of publish that package that we've got as well, as to how to do a circles yourself.
That's great. We have a question in the chat. Is it more impactful to reflect after each individual story or after the whole group has shared, or does it not matter?
That's a great question, Imran. I think it would be more impactful to wait for all stories to be finished before people do the flashback, because I think that makes sure that people don't actually get distracted with questions or thinking ahead. People just live in the moment and listen with all their heart and mind, I guess. But people can jot down a few keywords to remind them of what to say in a flashback on a particular story, if that makes sense. Hilary, would you like to add anything?
I completely agree. That's exactly what I would have said, It is important just to everyone actually to hold space for each other. So that's a big part of story circles, that you as Ha said, put it very well, listen with the full heart and mind. That's the idea, because we're so quick to, come up with a question or to respond. But really the idea is just to listen and learn from everybody else. Yeah, and that's quite challenging to do, I think. So it requires a lot of work.
I think for that exact reason, the recommendation is to keep small groups quite small, like between 3 to 7 people, something like we had today in breakout rooms, because that would not create an overload in people's memory, and people can just quickly jot a few keywords down while listening attentively and wholeheartedly to other people.
Asil in the chat has asked Thomas if you could please repeat the golden rules again.
Absolutely. I'm going to get the slide up to facilitate everyone that wants to remember them. So here are the story circle goals, which I like calling the 7 commandments. Demonstrate respect for others, practice listening for understanding, cultivate curiosity about similarities and differences with others, gain increased cultural self-awareness, which enables us to develop empathy and to engage in critical reflection on one's own intercultural competencies development, which then enables us to develop relationship with culturally different others. And I think that the main points to take away from these golden rules are the fact that we need to actively listen to others, avoid interrupting people when presenting their personal experience. If we have a question, just write it down, and then after everyone has shared, maybe ask the question. And also a good point to remember is that the timekeeper should not interrupt people to point out that the time has expired, but maybe do so by using the thumbs up function or just popping a message, so to make the sharing experience more organic and comfortable for everyone. I hope that has answered your question, Asio.
Thanks, Thomas. I just wondered if I should note that in the chat, Meredith has kindly reminded us that learning environments now support Padlet. So if you are interested in using Padlet as a tool, and I have done so, it's really useful. There's support provided by learning environments for that. Thank you, Meredith.
So Imran raised a great point. It can be distracting to think about what you're going to share while also trying to listen to someone else. And that's why as part of the guide, we put in the recommendation that you leave a few minutes of silence before anyone tells any story. So as soon as we get into our breakout rooms or small groups, it's just sort of feel comfortable being silent for a few minutes for people to jot down a few ideas. And actually in the guide, there's some suggestions as to what to say in terms of, what happened, when and where, just a few suggestions of how to tell a story. I know that, you are very experienced storytellers, but in case, you're working with students and they don't know how a story is structured, that always comes in handy.
I think that's a great point. And to me, Imran, that's a reflection in and of itself. So that could be something to think about, when someone else is talking, you might find it distracting to think of what you're going to say. So that's kind of part of, I guess, that whole active listening process. So being comfortable with that, to say, okay, I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm giving my full attention to this person. I'd experiment with that and then see what happens when it comes to my turn. Can I still come up with something? So yeah, it's very intentional, this whole story circle business. And then outside of it, it kind of spills over then. I think it might have an impact on how we all communicate outside of it. So it's quite exciting once you get into it.
That's a great point, Hilary, because a lot of times I find myself when listening to someone already thinking about the answer or what I'm going to say afterwards. And this activity enabled me to stop and just give my full attention to what someone else was saying. And I think that this is something which I have carried on in my everyday life, which I'm really grateful for.
I might just unmute myself. Say it instead of typing. I think it also sometimes a condition in situations like working groups, for example, where you have all these different people coming together and everyone's sharing updates. I can think of some very good examples, but I won't share which forums. But everyone's just there to share their story and not really listen to what others have to say. So, or you're thinking about what you're going to say. So it's like you go around the room and everyone's sharing an update. And you get to the end, and honestly, you could have just been in your own office and just read it yourself. Sometimes that's how I feel. So I think that could hopefully maybe translate in some ways into those kind of settings as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, and I think someone else in the chat talked about that as well, that whole inclusive leadership idea, making space for everybody. Yeah, great.
I guess we're at time now. What do you think, Melissa and Lucy?
Yes, I think that's probably a great point to end on. And I'm sure I speak for everybody here when I say thank you so much for the most wonderful, valuable and informative session. It's a really exciting thing that we can come along to this conference, even though we're online, and partake in something that's really engaging, that we can contribute to. And we're contributing to your research as well with the Padlet. It's fantastic. And it's also something we can take back to our own teams. And thank you so much to all three of you for the work you've put into this today. And I feel really privileged to have been part of it. And I do hope that everybody present has enrolled in more sessions of the conference, because we're not over yet. We've got lots more to go. And I really look forward to seeing you all in some of the other sessions. And thank you again, Hilary, Ha and Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all your attention, participation, and your contributions. And we'll keep you updated once our resources are out. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for your inputs. It's been amazing and you made this wonderful. Grazie.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.